Applying to some of the best U.S. colleges can seem very daunting, especially for homeschool students who don't have the typical resources of private or public students. However, it is 100% doable. I got into UNC Chapel Hill in the honors program. In this video, I'll walk you through how I did this. I'll cover information that specifically relates to homeschoolers. You can find other videos on my channel that talk about my specific grades, stats, extracurriculars, essays, all of that type of thing. But here I'm going to cover things that are going to be concerns, particularly for my homeschool peers. First main thing that homeschoolers need to be aware of is the high school transcript. You should be keeping a high school transcript for your student 9th through 12th grade. And the transcript itself may look somewhat different than a public school or more traditional school. However, I would encourage you to look into how it should be formatted, what should be included on it, and I'll give you some basic guidelines here. It should include some personal information like the student's name, their address, phone number, gender, date of birth, email, and then the same information for all the parents. It should also include the name of your homeschool program, a co-op if you use one, the high school start and graduation date, along with standardized test scores. This is technically optional, but only include these if your child took a test. On the screen, you can see what my transcript looked like in the next section. I didn't want to include the other section because of all the personal data. My grades and courses from 9th through 12th grade are included for the fall, spring, and if I had a summer semester. You can see the name of the course, along with superscript if that was needed, and a reference key at the bottom explaining that an H means honors, a D would mean dual enrollment. You can also see the credits I received, which is typically for most students going to be a half a credit per semester, and my letter grade. Then underneath you can see the GPA and the cumulative GPA I received. You can decide as a homeschool teacher how you want to weight this, if you give your student honors credit or not. They can only receive dual enrollment or AP credit if they're taking a registered dual enrollment or AP class. I would highly encourage you to pursue this route. This is one thing that helped me to stand out as a homeschool applicant. You can figure out how you might choose to weight, or maybe you don't weight within your homeschool. A is typically a 4.0, B is a 3.0, C is a 2.0. Add all the weightings up together considering the number of credits per class and you can get the student GPA. And then at the bottom you can see my family's grading scale and my mom's signature along with the date to show this was in fact an official high school transcript. Some people will choose to use services. That's what my family did. We used Homeschool Records, and it was definitely worth it because not only did they provide a transcript, but they provided services like service logs, reading logs, and now are even enabling you to create a school profile on their website, which I'll get to in a moment. You can also avoid a fee paying for a subscription service and use something like Excel, which might not be as professional looking, but as long as you include all the same pieces of information, it should do the job. Of course, it is nice when something looks more professional. However, most colleges will not be judging based on the information. As long as you include it and it makes sense, that's good enough. However, if your student plans on applying for scholarships, I would suggest trying to make it as polished as possible because sometimes they might not be quite as holistic. Another big thing that parents have to fill out is the counselor letter of recommendation. I would often suggest students submitting some kind of optional letter of rec since this is coming from a parent, which is not as preferred, but for students who don't have any other kind of counselor figure, this really is going to be the best option. Generally, I'd recommend keeping it to within one page and giving some kind of testimony of how you've seen the student progress over time, seeing them challenge themselves, and use specific examples to show how the student has improved and grown. In general, though, I would not suggest submitting this particular letter of recommendation for anything other than colleges because a letter of recommendation coming from outside your family is going to be much stronger in the long run because many people are going to assume that parent naturally has bias and is maybe even making things up about their student. This is why it's so important to take courses beyond what is offered at home, such as dual enrollment and AP courses, because it proves that the student is accountable. The next piece of information you're going to include is some kind of school profile. There are questions for you to fill out on the Common App if that's the application your student chooses to use. Some of the questions are not going to be as relevant for homeschooled students, such as questions about class rank, and oftentimes you can leave those blank. I'm going to show you what was included in my school profile to give you an idea of what information you should be providing. I was able to use a local public high school profile as a base when creating this document. I started off with the school year and the title of my family's homeschool, along with the principal name, contact information, and my address. Then I had several bolded headers for the following sections. I gave a quick description of my school, and this was all my mom writing it. So she explained that I was homeschooled from kindergarten through 12th grade, and explained why she decided to create her homeschool, which is often a question that colleges would like to know the answer to. In the next section, we gave a quick background on my community, explaining that it was a small town, rural, and giving an idea of what was located around it. I also talked about the ethnicities, the average income, and things that were available, such as the local community college or well-known historical landmarks. I also talked about the high school graduation rate and the rate of students attending four-year universities to give context. In the next section, information was included on my high school or my homeschool's curriculum. Since we went with a co-op program, we explained the co-op and what it provides, along with how it meets once a week. This was classical conversations, which subjects it covers. And since there's a dual enrollment program through the co-op, explained which dual enrollment classes were available to me in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. The curriculum also included an explanation on my county's community college and what was available, and for me particularly, since I was unable to take certain classes that I wanted to take, why that was the case. I explained additional programs that I took advantage of, local homeschool programs, and other activities. Finally, the section explained how my mom decided to give me honors credit versus regular credit for an assignment, which is also, in my opinion, something that's important to include. The fourth section was on the graduation requirements. In my state, every homeschool gets to set their own requirements. However, colleges generally have something that they're looking for, such as 4 years of English, math, science, history, and 2 years of foreign language. That's pretty standard. And so my mom explained what was expected in our homeschool. The second to last section was on grading, and she just explained her grading scale, just as was on the transcript, along with how she chose to weight the grades, since homeschool records didn't allow her to put that on her transcript. Finally, there was a section on extracurricular opportunities to explain what was available to me, why I didn't continue to participate in sports after a long time because of a lot of driving, how driving significantly impacted the extracurriculars that I was able to take, and how there was additional costs associated with this since I wasn't able to participate in public school extracurriculars. So those are the pieces of information that you, as a guidance counselor for your student, will provide on the Common App. But to help them continue to strengthen their college application for some of the better schools in the country, it's important that they have other pieces as well, because this alone will not make them get in. Test scores are especially key for homeschoolers, even more so for homeschoolers who didn't take AP classes, dual enrollment classes, or any kind of classes outside the homeschool, just to prove that they are academically prepared. This is why I strongly recommend that you take some kind of standardized test like the SAT or ACT, and APs as well if possible. This, I think, is one of the things that helped me stand out as a homeschooler. It's also important that they remain engaged in their communities and prove that antisocial stereotype wrong. They should have leadership positions, awards, and be in competitions, getting as far in those as possible, hopefully to the state or maybe even national level. This will help show that they are successful in social environments, they are engaged and involved in their communities. That's why it's important that they have things such as service hours, academic activities, a broad mixture of activities, but it's also important that they have some kind of story that they're able to tell with why they chose their activities. This might mean they have a spike with a particular career focus in mind, or just an interest. Students should focus on participating in activities that they enjoy, that they'll do well in, and interacting with others, while exploring their career and major interests. It's also important that they spend a lot of time thinking about their essays and planning the essays out. This is a really important thing for homeschoolers because they have such a unique story to tell. They should take advantage of these essays explaining why they were homeschooled, why it's impacted them, and especially how this might help them stand out on a campus which largely consists of private and public school students, making them somewhat more unique, and explain their story, how homeschooling fit for them, and how all of their activities pointed them down a certain path. The other thing that's important to touch on for homeschoolers is letters of recommendation, because this can be one thing that's harder to find, especially if a student didn't have any traditional teachers outside the homeschool. Typically, colleges are very understanding. If they had any kind of co-op teachers, dual enrollment teachers that were in person, it's nice that those people can write the 1 or 2 letters of recommendation for teachers that are required in most top 25 schools. However, colleges are also usually very understanding for homeschool students, so it's important to contact them, and many will allow letters of recommendation from extracurricular supervisors, such as a sports coach. My mock trial coach wrote one. Someone from your church may be able to write one. Just make sure that they know the student well and will give a good recommendation. That's all I have to say about college applications for homeschoolers looking at top 25s. Make sure you do really focus on those background materials. You can even include a course description for every course. That's something I did, though that is a lot of work if you don't have course descriptions provided for the majority of things like I did. You can include a reading list. Just make sure that your academic program is clear and colleges understand that your student had a rigorous educational experience through the transcript, through the school profile, through the counselor recommendation, through test scores, and make sure that they remained engaged, involved throughout high school, and have a story to show through their extracurriculars and essays, along with finding the right recommenders. If you do these things, then your student will be on track for getting into some of the best schools in the country. With that said, if you have any questions, ideas for future videos, comments in general, please put those down below, and like and subscribe to help a fellow former homeschooler. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.